Hello and welcome to Conversations with Dr. Stephen Greer. I'm Dr. Greer, and I'd like to thank the folks at the World Puja Network for hosting us here every 2 weeks to bring you insight and perspective on the work that we're working on. As you know, we're bringing out a new film soon called Sirius, and you can find out about that at sirius.neverendinglight.com. And I'm very excited today to have a really special guest. His name is Michael Short, and he is someone who's worked for many years in the tech area and editing films. And he was networked to us recently by a mutual friend, and he has done something really quite amazing with Peace Day TV at the UN and other places, and is chairman of All Things Peace, a nonprofit organization, and is very dedicated to the concepts of world peace, and we're now going to introduce the concepts of universal peace, because this is a universal moment in which we find ourselves here at the end of 2012. And a good part of what we're going to be focusing on, because Michael Short's doing some very special events around the end of the Mayan calendar and what all that means and the various perspectives on it. So I'm very excited to have Michael here with us. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Well, why don't you share with the listeners a little bit about what you're working on and how you got involved with all this?
Yes. Well, we're working on a global broadcast that will be mostly done on the Internet. Portions of it could be picked up by other networks, satellite networks or television networks. But Peace Day Television, or peaceday.tv as we call it, is a project that we started on the Internet. We started it for the United Nations International Day of Peace, which is the 21st of September every year.
Right.
And on that day, there are global events that take place around the world for various peace activities, peace-related organizations, people who are following the Millennium Development Goals, which were set out by the UN several years ago. Do things like eradicate hunger and poverty and so forth. A couple years ago, they did a review of those goals. And so instead of just one day on peace, we had about a week's worth of events taking place around the world. And over time, we have been developing here a very complex studio that we're building ourselves that allows us to accept media streams of information coming live from events around the world, and then basically repackage them into a channel of information that we call peaceday.tv. And then we rebroadcast that out to the world. And so I said, well, we're going to do this as a nonprofit production company. We really want to achieve peace, and we don't want it to be one day a year. We want it to be every day. I mean, that's our goal.
Right.
So we started gathering the content, talking to people, creating relationships, and now we're full-time 24/7 broadcasting, and we have audiences of millions over the course of the year that people tune into us, and fresh new content. And so we have this sort of unique capability with our staff and with our technology to do a global broadcast and receive events. So we started getting contacts a few months ago about the upcoming solstice. And people are saying, hey, we're going to do a global broadcast, but we don't know how to do it. So everyone keeps giving me your name and number. And I was just really amazed at the number of events and the types of events related to the solstice that were taking place around the world. And we had already planned to do something about the solstice, and we had some content coming in, and we were getting ready to produce this. To make a long story short, over the course of the past couple of months, these events, which we have over 50 of them now on the list that are taking place, and there are many, many more events, but 50 of them are significant, like at Stonehenge and Chichen Itza and Teotihuacan and places like that.
Right.
With a lot of luminaries and whatnot. And they basically are all converging into a big global broadcast that will be found all over the Internet. And we're just very excited about it.
Well, great. Yeah, because you have a great background technically, and of course we were talking the other day when we first had our discussion about the meaning of this date, and of course this gets into a lot of different viewpoints, but of course, my view of it is that it's actually part of the end of one cycle and the opening of another. Of course, it's always been, the media always takes it and turns it into a caricature of the end of the world, because you'd be more stupid, but in reality, it's the end of an old world and it's the beginning of a new, and so you can look at it as apocalyptic. I guess what I tell people, the people who have their talons into the old order that's collapsing all around us, whether it be economic, religious, and governmental, institutional, what have you, it's apocalyptic for them because they're going down with the ship. But in reality, there is an entirely new civilization emerging, and so we live with these eddy currents of the collapse of the old and the emergence of the new. And so what I choose to focus on is the emergence of the new, and the new is not only a time of world peace, which I think is cliche and old, and so 1960s I think I'm going to vomit, but universal peace, and universal peace is really where it's at, because we have civilizations visiting this planet that we can prove and have done through the Disclosure Project. SETI is making contact with these civilizations in various transdimensional and interesting ways, and this is totally off the radar scope of most people, and yet here we are emerging as a universal civilization, and that's what's really exciting. And with it, I think we're going to have to emerge into a period of not just universal peace, but also the concepts of universal physics, because the physics and the science behind this time is what's also going to parallel the development of consciousness and higher states of consciousness. So I don't know. I'd just like to hear your kind of view on how this is all emerging and how you're seeing people see this time, this solstice period and the end of the Mayan calendar as you're putting this together, and what your views on it are.
Well, for one thing, the Mayans don't believe it's the end of the world, and they're going to make a statement live on the broadcast about that. It really is the beginning of a new era for them. We've also gathered a bunch of elders from various Aboriginal tribes, including the Hopis and others that have their own prophecies, which kind of coincide with that.
Right.
So, and they all agree that this is a new emerging age that from my personal experience, and a lot of people don't know this because I don't share this because I don't basically have the opportunity, but I have had many sightings of UFOs where I have had telescopes and witnesses and all kinds of people with me, so I'm not alone there. And I've had contact, not directly, but I've been contacted as early as the 90s by people saying, they know that in the future you're going to do something to help get the message out to many people who need to hear it. And I think that that's what's going on now. I have been putting together the treatment for the show, and I started with pure science, like I said, the physics of things, and I'm really amazed at how advanced science is. And you look at this, if nothing else, please enjoy this, because this is a very unique solstice. It's a unique timing of the solstice.
Right.
It is the end of different great cycles, like this is the Mayan Baktun, and it's the 13th one. Although there are experts coming on the show that have found new calendars in Guatemala and new hieroglyphics that say that there's more Baktuns ahead. I mean, obviously they don't think it's the end of the world like Hollywood thinks it. But it's also the end of the grand procession of the zodiac.
Right.
And there really is a galactic alignment, the center of the galaxy. So if nothing else, enjoy the science and enjoy what that means. But as I have been researching it and talking to the people who are around the world preparing their events, I'm finding that it's fascinating that the story is that there is a new age. Even the Kali Yuga, which we're in now, says that we're close to the Golden Age. There's various people who believe that there's an enlightenment coming, a higher consciousness. And I think that's the glue that I'm finding with, if you're thinking about UFO encounters, if you're talking about a society that can benefit from free energy devices, if you're talking about return to the respect for Mother Earth, and cleaning up the pollution and return to the ways of organic gardening and things. Whatever it is, this higher consciousness comes out in all of the stories. And even in my last conversation with you, I was pretty fascinated about your uptake on the fact that here's why we don't have free energy right now, and here's why we're not welcome yet out into the galaxy, because we have to reach a higher consciousness level and get away from the tribal warfare, me society concept. So I'm finding that as a common thread throughout all of these different spokes on the wheel here for this show.
Well, I think one of the key things is that our society is always a reflection of the aggregate consciousness and level of consciousness of its people. And this is something we have to own. It isn't to say every individual is at that aggregate. But the reality is, if you look at our society right now in 2012, we have a lot of wonderful things happening. On the other hand, we are destroying the biosphere, and there are 7 billion people trying to live burning oil and gas and coal and using nuclear power, which obviously creates enormous life-destroying radiation. And all of those are destructive technologies. What's interesting is that if you look at the technologies that are interstellar and transdimensional, they draw energy in a harmless way with very elegant electrical engineering from the quantum vacuum of space, out of the 0-point energy field that's around us. I mean, sitting in the room where you're listening, everyone should visualize that every cubic centimeter of space has enough energy to run the Earth for a day, embedded within the fabric of space-time. And this has been proven in physics. The Casimir effect was very well proven. There have been experiments with this going back 100 years. There have been operational devices for almost that amount of time, and there have been anti-gravity propulsion devices at my uncle's old company, Northrop Grumman. Of course, my uncle designed the lunar module and worked on that project with Grumman, and it became Northrop Grumman, but also Lockheed Martin and the Skunk Works have had these anti-gravity electromagnetic devices. And yet, because of the consciousness of greed and fear and lower chakra impulses and lower consciousness impulses, these technologies and breakthroughs and great truths have been hidden. So my autobiography is called Hidden Truth, Forbidden Knowledge for a reason, because this is the hidden truth and the forbidden knowledge that you just whisper about in the corridors of power in Washington, where I have a home and where I meet with people frequently. And it's a sad situation on one level. On the other level, it's a very hopeful situation, because what I tell people is that most people don't realize that we already have extant on the earth right now, at this instant, the technologies and the sciences that could give us a sustainable civilization without pollution, without poverty, and without conflict and war for hundreds of thousands or millions of years, and we have it already.